Hey, everybody, it's Jerry here. Welcome to the Asian Americans. I really appreciate you tuning in. Today, we're going to have a conversation with Bonnie Tang, co director of the New York City Asian American Student Conference, where I am honored to speak to kick things off, and you'll hear from amazing speakers. And today, I want to share with you another Asian American owned business that is going to help a lot of people through the COVID-19 pandemic. And from the makers of Asian Flush comes a new game called Stay the F Inside, except F is fully spelled out in the name. So check them out. It's staythefinside.com. 100% of their profits are going to Meals on Wheels to make sure that isolated elderly who are being overwhelmingly impacted by the stay at home orders and the pandemic can get food delivered to them directly. A big shout out to our guest from episode number 8, John Lim, for creating the game and for donating all the profits to charity. So check them out, staythefinside.com. Fun drinking game you can play digitally. It's a pay what you can model. So just for a few dollars, you can download and play a game with your friends across town, across the world. And we want to thank John for being a big fan and a supporter of the show as well. And here now is my conversation with Bonnie. Welcome, everybody, to Dear Asian Americans. I am your host, Jerry Wan. And today I have a very, very fun guest, an exciting guest. But she is one of the directors of the New York City Asian American Student Conference, something that Dear Asian Americans is so excited to support. It's going down this Saturday. So hopefully you're listening to this before Saturday, April 25th. But if you are listening to this after, go look up the videos and maybe you'll hear me or any of our other guests come and speak. High school and college are very fun times for all of us. And I think when it comes to the foundation or the journey of finding our identities, it sucks being a student because it's in your teenage years. You're trying to figure out who to be, who do you not want to be, what to study, where to go to school, so many things. And then to throw in the extra challenges and extra struggles of our Asian and dual identities that some of our friends don't have to deal with. It makes for a very tumultuous time. And it is a challenging time for so many of us, just given on that and the expectations of career and academic success. And so the fact that Bonnie and her team have decided to spend time to create a space where fellow Asian American students from the New York City area can come together, share ideas, and to celebrate what makes us awesome is something that I am so proud to support. And so would love to welcome Bonnie Tang to the show. Hi, Bonnie.
Hey, Jerry. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. How is life right now?
Life's pretty much just trying to hand in the Simon sunshine right now during this pandemic. It's really tough just working at home, not being able to go outside, interact with my classmates, I see my professors be in class, and I'm kind of actually missing class right now. I'm actually a commuter to Stony Brook, and it takes 2.5 hours to get there. But for me to miss a 5-hour round trip commute, it tells a lot. At the current situation.
Well, that's a big drive.
Yeah.
Familiar with that drive, so that is a big commitment on your end to make school a priority and then to do what you do. Share with us more about Bonnie in your earlier years. How did Bonnie's family move to America? Where did you spend your earlier years growing up, and what kind of neighborhood was that?
So my family came here from Cambodia as refugees. And originally they were in the Bronx and ended up moving to Brooklyn. But I was born in Manhattan, but grew up in Brooklyn also. So that was interesting to find out. But yeah, I grew up in a predominantly Italian neighborhood. So in elementary school, I didn't see that many people that looked like me. Like some of the people that did ended up coming into my life later on as the neighborhood changed in terms of like ethnicities.
I think most people don't realize this about New York City because we hear about it all the time from the perspective that it is the melting pot of America, that it is one of the most diverse cities. And while it may be factually true, it is also true. Maybe it's different now, but traditionally it's been also a very segregated city and very separated by neighborhoods where people of certain races or ethnicities lived, or even different religions lived in certain parts of town. And so if you're from New York City, if I say Astoria, you think of somebody that lives there. If I tell you Flushing, creates a different mental image. And so I think that experience of you growing up in Brooklyn, where it's very diverse,
Yes.
particularly King County is probably one of the most diverse counties in the country, and a lot of Asian representation there. So what type of high school did you go to, and did that diversity of in a predominantly Italian American neighborhood change as you were growing up?
For sure. It definitely changed in terms of like as the cities. I'm still in it right now, but it's shifting to more of a Chinese American community. So it's like you see a shift and you see the increase in racism in the neighborhood. And in the high school I went to, it was about 5 miles away. It was a different part of Brooklyn, but it was still predominantly white. And it was a high school that focuses on the sciences. So I got to explore um, the sciences for my family because I felt pressured to, I guess, like just really be in love with with sciences because I'm Asian.
You shared with us that your parents were refugees from Cambodia. Um, were they able to complete their academic pursuits when they came stateside?
I'm the first in the family to go to college, so my parents didn't graduate college, they didn't even finish high school.
And because of that, what kind of pressures did you feel, not only to pursue college and higher education, but was there any pressure to study anything in particular?
Initially, I was kind of pressured to be pushed into like the sciences, like bio, chem, physics, or computer science. As also as an only child, like I feel like it was like my obligation growing up to like be successful for my parents. But as life moved on and I learned about activism, I learned about Asian American identities, I felt more passionate about those things and like learning more about myself first and before I actually put effort into helping other people.
When you went from high school to college, what did you want to study? And did that change during your time there?
Well, in high school, I think like freshman and sophomore year, I thought maybe I want to be in like an anthropologist or like a doctor in general. And and then I hit junior year where I was like I was in an AP US history class, and it was the first time that I saw in a textbook that it mentioned, oh, Chinese Americans exist in our history. I did not know that. And so I saw like a real documentary in class, and that made me question. So where is everyone else? Where's the rest of Asian Americana? You know what I mean? So from there on, I googled NYCAASC, the New York City Asian Student Conference, by just typing in like New York City Asians. I didn't even complete the whole thought because I didn't know what it was called or like if there was one,
Yeah,
and that's how I found it out.
that's awesome. I mean, some of the listeners may know, some of them may not. I went to high school in New York City, and in the late '90s, we didn't have that, and I wish we did. I'm definitely not saying that there was no Asian American programming or there was no Asian American student things. But what you guys are doing, I think, is something that I desperately wish I had, and I think that could have been so helpful, not just to me, but for so many of my friends to hear from people that look like me, went to the
Mm-hmm.
schools that I did, and to just know that what I'm feeling and what I'm going through is completely normal as an immigrant kid living in a society and family full of high traditional expectations and all that struggle. Share with me a little bit more about your activism. What did that help you to do? What kind of extracurriculars or club things do you invest your time in at Stony Brook and back at home in Brooklyn that help you feel good about the way you're spending your energy and your gifts and your privilege now to help other people?
This also happened starting junior year of high school. I think it was May 2016. I started this hashtag called Starring Constance Wu, which photoshopped Constance Wu's face on different Hollywood posters. And after that, that surprised me because I wasn't sure how people would respond to it. So I just did it out of the blue. I was on Twitter one night. I was bored. I finished with my assignments. I was just went out of my life. So I just posted a few pictures, and then it started getting a notice about 2 or 3 weeks later, which also surprised me because I think it was like in one of my classes, maybe physics, but I just saw an email about um, about this hashtag, so I was confused for sure.
Who was that email from?
It was from a journalist at NBC.
And what do they want to know about it?
They wanted, the backstory behind it.
That's so cool. And what was that like? You're 2016, so you're a freshman or a senior?
I think, beginning my senior year of high school. Yeah, beginning of senior year of high school.
Okay, so there you
Yeah,
are, a senior in high school.
yeah,
You do this just because obviously it's something that you want to see, right? We want to see faces
yeah,
that look like yours
yeah.
and mine. And obviously there was a big Starring John Cho movement, and we've seen a lot of these similar movements. How did you take that news, and did you end up doing the interview with the news channel?
I did, I did. I gave a couple of quotes also, and that just made me realize this does matter. People do care about it. So I took that, and then I learned more about other Asian American nonprofits and organizations, not just in New York City, but like across the country and the work they've done.
Mm.
So for me, I went from exploring my Asian American identity to exploring my Southeast Asian side, to exploring that even deeper, to my Cambodia, and also I'm also part Chinese, and that Chinese part is called Teochew, but I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's
Mm.
definitely not like a mainstream language most people know about. So I so over the years I explored different layers of myself.
What are some of the steps that you took to find out and connect with that community? As you mentioned, it's not a very prominent or large, as large as some of the other Asian American groups here in the
Mm-hmm.
States.
So for me, I after learning more about just like general like Asian American history, I got curious and just Googled these random things. And one of them being just Cambodian refugees. And then that's how I found out different nonprofits that exist across the country. There's only one in New York that helps the Cambodian community, and that's called Mekong, and it's based in the Bronx. So a lot of the refugees, Cambodian refugees that were moved to New York, they started out from the Bronx. So
Oh.
there's a small community that's still there. Most of them moved out to other communities like Long Beach and Lowell, where there's bigger Cambodian communities.
You might be one of the very few people. I didn't know they let you write opinion pieces on this website, but you wrote an opinion piece on MTV.com
Yes.
about starring Constance Wu. How did that happen, and what was some of the reactions from your family and friends?
I think I just pitched an idea to an editor,
So you,
and
you reached out.
I believe so. Yes. It's a while ago. Yeah. And then I pitched the idea. I wrote a draft. I pitched the idea first, and then they liked it. And then I wrote a draft, and then they sent it to the editor, and then that ended up being published.
Well, congratulations. Thank you for doing that. As so many things go, not that it has to go viral per se, but anytime I genuinely believe somebody that looks like me and you, somebody who has a similar sounding name, or definitely comes from the same place in the world, anytime we exercise our right to share our story publicly in
Mm-hmm.
a large forum, whether it's a podcast, a conference, or a website, the impact that you create and the inspiration that comes from that is something that is, you can't ever quantify that because you don't know who's reading it and you don't know the impact that it has on the back end. So first of all, thank you for doing that. I think it's a tremendous, um, it's awesome, just really awesome. You got involved in NYCAASC, or the New York City Student Asian American Student Conference, even back then as a high school student. And
Yeah.
this year, um, I guess, sort of as your finale, you are the co-director. Tell me about that experience. What other sort of roles did you play in the organization, and how was the atmosphere? And share with us some cool stories about NYCAASC's recent history.
So it's my 5th year in NYCAASC. So I'm officially retiring after this one. Old now. But when I first joined, I was on the events committee, which mainly handles performers and food contracts. And then the second and third year, I was co-chair of the events committee. And then last year, I was the co-chair of the PR committee. And then this year, I'm currently a co-director. But year after year, the conference, it's always different, although the structure is the same. Because most of the time, people graduate and you have induct new members in part of the committees. And then the themes always change every year based on what's happened the previous year in terms of let's say like these past 2 years have mainly been focused on just media, but this year is mainly about amplifying marginalized voices because we've been seeing a growth in Asian representation in various outlets and media. But it's like which voices are being heard.
It's one of the unique conferences anywhere that I've seen. Not only is it student run, but it is a joint project, if you will, from both high school and college students. When we think about student conferences or when we hear about different endeavors, it's usually binary. It's usually geared towards high school students, organized by
Mm-hmm.
adults,
Mm-hmm.
or for students by students from a college perspective. Share with us a little bit on the history of NYSAC and why is it important and how is it structured so that both high school and college students get to not only attend but play a critical role in the organization of it.
So in New York City, 1 out of every 4 student is comes from a family that's in poverty. At NYSAC, we want to make sure that we create an accessible space for everyone. So on our part, we make sure to fundraise all the fundraise enough to cover all the fees for attendees. We want to make sure that, especially high school students, like a lot of us growing up, we're just trying to find ourselves and find our identities and learn more about ourselves. And unfortunately, we don't have ethnic studies in our schools. If that happened, or that even worked out, then people would get to learn more about ourselves, but also like other people in general and
Right.
everyone around us. But as a lot of us often don't even talk about identities in school at all, because it's not even addressed. So with high school students, like a lot of them, it's more just inspiring them to, be feel awesome about being Asian American, and by creating an inclusive space for both high school and college students, you get to create like a potential like mentorship between the two. Because a lot of times college students, sometimes a lot of times they don't even know about themselves either in terms of like being Asian American, because if they're not exposed to a space like this, they're not likely to go out and seek the information because
Right.
sometimes there's other things going on.
You talked about accessibility, which this year, because of all that's going on, the conference had to shift a little bit. So right now, the conference is a virtual conference and really open to anybody across the world who wants to come on and join us virtually on Saturday. Take us through the conversations and the decision-making process between you and your team when you realized that you could no longer have an in-person conference in New York City as you had in years past.
Well, we're trying to figure out how to handle this by just looking at what other people could be doing with like their events in terms of like our classes all being on Zoom, most of us. So we're trying to take advantage of this um, option to have it online.
Yeah,
Because if we cancel the whole thing, then we would break a tradition. And then a lot of
right.
us were already working hard on it. So,
Yeah,
because we started planning process around in January, so we were already about 2 months in, and
yeah.
then we just got an email saying, "Oh, the building's closed," or the coronavirus will happen, so the whole campus is going to be closed. So we didn't want to waste all of the work.
I think that was a wise choice. Let's talk about some of the speakers who've been at the conference in the years past, who's been your most memorable one, and what was it about what they share that makes them so memorable to you?
I think for me, it was probably Ronnie Chang from The Daily Show and Crazy Rich Asians. He did a Q&A, and he spoke about representation in the media.
When did he talk? Was it pre or post Crazy Rich Asians?
I think it was like a few months before the movie was released. So it's like in the midst of it. Yeah.
He knew that the movie was going to be great, and he had filmed it years before, so that's cool. He's one of the guys in the community that all does the right thing, and I think does a lot with the
Uh-huh.
platform that he knows that he is lucky to have. Let's talk about the conference coming up this Saturday. Who's coming to speak, and what are you excited for?
Well, you're coming to speak as the first keynote, and then Angel Yao from this group called Asian Pop. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Hmm.
So she's from Asian Pop. She's a great comedian. She's a great actress. She's also someone that I look up to. Asian Pop performed in 2018, I believe, the same year that Brownie was there at NYCAASC. So another NYCAASC alum.
Very cool.
Um, and then we have breakout sessions as well as workshops, and a few of your future guests or past guests are doing awesome things for us. So
And many of these guests that you're having on, I guess including myself, we are from New York City, or at least have attended school in New York City. And I think that is extra cool because representation without context doesn't mean as much with that particular context of, hey, we went to the same schools that you did. Um, we may have not grown up in the
mm-hmm,
same exact neighborhoods together, but we know what it means to take the train for hours to get to school.
mm-hmm,
We understand what it means to navigate the big city that New York is as a teenager.
mm-hmm,
We understand some of the challenges. And to be fair, I got to New York right before high school, so I didn't grow up as a child in New York City. So all this was very new and foreign to me.
mm-hmm,
Before that, I was in a suburb of LA, so I was in the car all the time, being driven.
mm-hmm,
So it was a big eye-opening experience for me, much more so than what most people think of college as, is where they sort of grew up and found themselves and uh, matured and whatnot. For me, the high school years, and I was at Bronx Science for 3 years, that was really, really cool for me in that way. So um, it means a lot, I guess, just even virtually to go back to New York City
mm-hmm.
and to share just a few words that I think could help the students have a good rest of the conference. Um, yeah, if people are catching this episode before Saturday and they don't have plans for Saturday, and most of us don't have plans for Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
at least you can't go anywhere. So,
Yeah.
um, why should they spend a few hours with us at NYCAASC this Saturday?
But we have an awesome schedule planned. We're not just having speakers, but we also have like interactive activities, different Q&As with cool people. Might as well network and socialize while you have the chance, because can't really go out. You could socialize online. So we have we're socializing with social distance. So
Socializing with social
yes.
distancing. That is awesome. And if you're not a student, but you're in your early professional career, we invite you to join as well. If you have people in your network, if you're a parent of a high school or a college student, send them to the website, ask them to check it out, learn a little bit more about the show, or learn about the conference. And even if you can just join us for an hour or so, join. You know, um, I don't know how many people, are saying, well, I can't be there for the whole 5 hours. That's okay. Come for what you can. The students are going to be announcing the rest of the speaker roster in the coming days. I was lucky enough to nominate some great, great friends who've done some really amazing things with their lives. Many of them from New York City who are going to be sharing their stories as well as advice, perspective, lessons that they've learned along the way. Whatever walk of life you're in right now, as Bonnie mentioned and shared with us at the top of the show, these are extremely challenging times for students. I think we often look at the student population and as very resilient and also very nimble and also very adaptive. What do they have to worry about? They're just staying at home and being asked to study. That can't be that hard. But if you remember back to when you were in high school or when you were in college, it was the best time for exploration. It was the best time for socializing. How many countless days and hours did we spend at a coffee shop or a boba shop or just at a restaurant, just getting to know each other and really ourselves with our friends, meeting new ones, going to parties and events in college. And right now, that opportunity is being taken away. And it's for a really good reason. We're trying to keep people safe, but it still does not take away from the fact that it is an extremely challenging time for students. One can only Zoom so much, one can only Netflix so much. And for many of us, whether in New York or LA, we've gone past that month mark. So it's a very challenging time to sit still and not be able to go outside as freely as we'd like. Bonnie, share with us something that, based on your conversations with you and your friends the last month or so, in organizing this conference and other friends from back home and from college, what are some things that we, the not student population, can be more aware of and try to be helpful with the students during these challenging times?
I guess one thing would could be just not because we're all some of us because some people I know some people might have part time jobs still like online, and they're still balancing schoolwork. So it's more like we're not it's not work from home anymore. It's like more like trying to work from home under a pandemic. So we all have to be understanding of one another. If let's say if someone couldn't perform the same um, if someone couldn't give the same performance as they did pre-pandemic, then it's fine because right now it's a stressful time. I know for me, I've been at home for 38 days and counting. So I haven't. I mean, I've seen the sun from the window, but I haven't like stepped outside. So yeah, and my birthday's coming up next month.
Me too. Me too. It's a bit of a challenge trying to figure out how we're going to celebrate that. Yeah, I mean, we have to take this opportunity to really exercise empathy.
Yeah.
And even though it might not make sense in our head, we have to do our best to be kind to each other. Um, in the context of a student's life, maybe getting an A in that class used to be the
Mm-hmm.
most important thing in the world for that person. But in a global pandemic that none of us have any real control over, maybe realize that that's not the end of the world and
Yeah.
that we're all going through something. Um, there's not very many people that are living an uninterrupted life. The people that are still going to work are going to work probably against their will, or it's not ideal. Nobody wants to go out
Yeah.
there and put their health at risk for their family. But some are doing it because they have to. Some are doing it because they want to. But it's not, nobody's leading a normal life right now. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, and if you got students at home, uh, you know, just, I don't know, ask them. Everybody's a little bit different. And if you have students in your life, whether they be high school or college, friend, cousin, nephew, niece, check in on them. Make sure they're doing okay. A single conversation or just checking in with them or just taking their mind off of whatever might be stressful for them might really, really be a good benefit for them in ways that we don't know. Bonnie, thanks for coming on the show. I'm really excited for this Saturday. It's weird because I've connected with some of the other speakers already, and
Mm-hmm.
ideally in a conference, you'd meet them and hang out with them before or after, and there's a certain high and an energy that the crowd gives you, and you're sort of on this adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
And so it'll be fun. It'll be different, but it'll be fun nonetheless, to speak to what I hope is an amazing, large group of students,
Hmm.
to help the conference be as successful as we can. But you know what? Even if it's just one person that signs on, I hope that we get to have some fun conversations. I hope that it is all worth it.
Hmm.
Um, because for me, especially, and some of my peers, we didn't have as many people to hear from that were doing cool, different things. Um, you mentioned in your MTV article that our parents want us to take the safe jobs. And I grew up at a time when most of my older brothers and sisters all very much took the safer road. And so we didn't get to hear the cool stories of I left corporate America to do this, or I was a lawyer and then ended up doing this.
Hmm.
So looking forward to Saturday. We end the show, every show, going back to the name of the show, which is Dear Asian Americans. And it is a letter to the community from the community members and our guests, and really for everybody who's listening, to share stories and to share some perspectives or anything you'd like to share, to the Asian American community. So, Bonnie, if you could please help us finish out the show and finish the letter, Dear Asian Americans.
Dear Asian Americans, if you aspire to be someone or pursue a career that isn't stereotypical or typically safe, it's okay. You could think about it. You could explore it. Anything is possible nowadays. You might not have representation in all the fields or like everywhere in society, but you could be that change. You can make the difference. You could follow that path.
And if you don't know what that looks like, come hear from some of us who are still on that path. I am a 36-year-old dad of two who always admits that I have no idea what I still want to do when I grow up. I don't know if very many other of my friends who are in my life stage
Hmm.
will admit that in public, but I found out that more than anything that I've ever shared about my life or my journeys or my lessons, that bit, just sharing my honest truth that I still don't know what I'm doing,
Hmm.
has been the most empowering thing that other people have told me that I've shared with them, which is crazy because we have been raised and continue to be brought up in the world where you should know everything. People
Yes.
act like they have everything figured out. And the people who scream the loudest saying that they have everything figured out are the ones who reap most of the traditional rewards and get put on pedestals. But
Hmm.
I am here to share with you. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm still figuring it out. Sharing Asian American stories via this podcast is something that makes sense for me today. It's something that I really enjoy doing. I don't know where all this is going to go. I'm just doing something that I wish I had when I was in your shoes, coming out of high school and coming out of college. And who knows how my life would have been slightly different had we had some of these stories in our ears and in our faces. So, Bonnie, thank you so much. The NYCAASC team, I've gotten to know you guys through the last couple of weeks. Really, really amazing, dedicated, talented group of people. You've been with the organization for 5 years. You continue to do great work. You've shared with me that post graduation, you want to do PR work in helping organizations that do good in the community. So thank you for making that dedication and that commitment to making sure that people that are our parents, our grandparents, and our children, and ultimately us, can thrive in communities feeling safe and healthy and well. So you're awesome. Keep being awesome, Bonnie.
Thank you.
I will see you on Saturday, but I will also see you in person when we get a chance. And I look forward to learning from you and celebrating all the great work that you've done with the New York City Asian American Student Conference. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed my conversation with Bonnie. It's always so great talking to students and do what we can. And we definitely know what it felt like to be in their shoes. And regardless of where you are in life, always take a moment to help somebody out. Don't just send the elevator back down, but go take the elevator back down. Mentor somebody, help them come up however far they want to go, and make sure that you can be there to help them along their journey. If you haven't signed up yet, do sign up for the New York City Asian American Student Conference at NYCAASC.com. And I hope to see you there on Saturday. Follow us and like us on Instagram and on Facebook at Dear Asian Americans. And you can also find links there to apply to be on the show yourself. Thanks again. And until next time, stay safe and stay healthy. This has been your host, Jerry Wan.